If you could stand on the great crescent bend of the Mississippi River in the year 1763, you would not see the glowing neon of Bourbon Street or the glass towers of the modern skyline. You would not hear jazz, traffic, or the hum of a global city. Instead, you would find yourself in a fragile colonial outpost, carved out of swamp and river silt, balanced precariously between ambition and disaster. This was New Orleans at the moment it passed from French to Spanish hands, transferred quietly by treaty, like a strategic square on the chessboard of empires. The air would be heavy with moisture, thick with the scent of wet earth, decaying wood, and the brackish breath of the surrounding cypress swamps. Mosquitoes would drift in clouds. The river would move slowly, but with unstoppable force, pressing against earthen levees that stood as the only barrier between civilization and oblivion. To the first European settlers, this was not a romantic frontier. It was a daily struggle against flood, disease, heat, and isolation. Fever stalked the streets. Houses sank into the mud. Storms could erase months of labor in a single night. Yet, to the world beyond, this small settlement possessed extraordinary value. Whoever controlled this bend in the Mississippi controlled the gateway to an entire continent. Using modern AI reconstruction, we can now bring to life the sketches, maps, and engravings left behind by those early observers. These images allow us not only to see the city as it once was, but to inhabit it, to feel the oppressive humidity, to hear the creak of wagon wheels on dirt streets, and to sense the tension of a community attempting to impose order on a hostile landscape. Long before it became American, New Orleans was already a fusion of Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean, shaped by trade, slavery, and empire. Before the wrought iron balconies and pastel facades of the French Quarter, there was only mud, timber, and resolve. By the late 1760s, under Spanish administration, the city began to take on a more disciplined and fortified form. Early maps revealed the rigid grid of the Vieux Carré, the old square, laid out with military precision. Modest wooden houses lined narrow streets, their steep roofs inherited from Northern Europe, but ill-suited to the subtropical heat. AI reconstructions show a harsher reality. Roads submerged after rain, rotting boardwalks built from cypress, and a massive earthen levee forming the settlement's fragile shield against the river. At the heart of the town lay the open parade ground now known as Jackson Square. In the late 18th century, it was a dusty, sun-scorched field. Imagine standing there in 1780, watching Spanish troops drilling in heavy wool uniforms, while enslaved men and women from the Caribbean sold fruit, tobacco, and spices nearby. The air would carry a blend of languages, French, Spanish, Creole, and African tongues, revealing a port city already global in character. Brick construction soon replaced fragile timber, signaling that New Orleans was evolving from a frontier experiment into a permanent colonial capital. But permanence would come at a terrible price. On Good Friday in 1788, fire swept through the city. Fanned by strong winds, flames consumed more than 800 buildings in a matter of hours. A second inferno followed in 1794, erasing nearly all remaining traces of the original French wooden town. These catastrophes forced a transformation. When New Orleans rebuilt, it did so in brick and stone, adopting Spanish architectural principles designed for heat, fire resistance, and airflow. Thick masonry walls, arched doorways, and interior courtyards emerged, creating the distinctive urban form we associate with the French Quarter today. Architectural plans from the 1790s show the rising presence of St. Louis Cathedral, the Cabildo, and the Presbytère, anchoring the civic heart of the city. At this time, balconies were still simple and wooden. The famous ironwork would come later. The streets were narrow, dense, and shaded, carrying the scent of lime mortar, clay brick, and river moisture. Then, in 1803, New Orleans entered a new chapter. With the Louisiana Purchase, this Catholic, French-speaking, Spanish-styled city became part of the United States. A painting of the transfer ceremony shows the French flag descending and the American flag rising in its place. Yet, political authority changed far faster than culture. The city remained profoundly Creole in spirit. Sundays were filled with music and dancing, not silent prayer. Gambling houses thrived. Catholic festivals continued to dominate the calendar. A cultural fault line emerged at Canal Street. To the east lay the old Creole city, shaped by Latin traditions and colonial memory. To the west rose the American sector, defined by English language, Protestant values, and commercial ambition. AI reconstructions highlight this contrast. On one side, courtyards and colonial facades. On the other, wide avenues, warehouses, and Greek Revival townhouses. In 1815, New Orleans became the focal point of international conflict. During the War of 1812, British forces advanced toward the city, seeking to seize the Mississippi and cripple American trade. At the Chalmette Plantation, just downriver, a diverse and improvised army under General Andrew Jackson confronted them. Frontiersmen, free black soldiers, native allies, and even pirates stood together. Against all expectations, they achieved a decisive victory. The celebration that followed bound the city's many cultures into a shared national identity. Peace ushered in prosperity. By the 1820s, steamboats crowded the levee, their smokestacks darkening the sky. Cotton flowed in vast quantities from the interior, bound for Europe and the northeastern United States. The waterfront thundered with steam whistles, shouted commands, and the grinding of machinery. Merchants spoke in multiple languages. Fortunes were made in a single season. New Orleans had become one of the most important ports in the world. The 1830s marked both the height of elegance and the depth of moral contradiction. The Grand St. Charles Hotel, crowned by a vast white dome, rose as one of the most luxurious buildings in the Western Hemisphere. Inside, chandeliers illuminated opulent ballrooms where the elite danced beneath painted ceilings. Yet only streets away, enslaved men, women, and children were auctioned in public markets. Newspaper illustrations show families separated by the strike of a gavel. Human lives were traded alongside cotton and sugar. It was a city of extraordinary beauty, built upon extraordinary suffering. By 1840, New Orleans stood as a titan of commerce. Railroads and canals expanded its reach. Its skyline stretched for miles along the river. Yet danger remained ever present. Yellow fever returned each summer, claiming thousands. Cemeteries filled with above-ground tombs, necessary in a land where the soil could not safely hold the dead. When we view AI-restored images of the riverfront at sunset, we are reminded of the city's fragile foundations. Built on silt, surrounded by water, and shaped by empire, slavery, and ambition, New Orleans was always a gamble against nature and time. And yet, from this precarious beginning emerged a culture, an identity, and a spirit found nowhere else on earth. These streets, these voices, and these struggles form the living DNA of the Crescent City.